So got it.
All right, amazing. All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have a very, very special guest that I'm excited to have on the show today, Alex Skyles of Alex Skyles Astrology. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, thank you, Gabriella. I appreciate you having me on, and it's lovely to meet you.
You as well. I'm excited
Yeah.
for today's talk on this new moon in Aquarius. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were before we I pressed record, we started talking about we just got into it a little bit. So, and you said this was a good time to start recording. You do astrology, you're a music producer, you're also a musician. By the way, you have some amazing fucking chops. I've heard you sing, so
Thank you. I appreciate that.
blown
Thank
away
you.
when I saw you sing. I was just like, oh my God, this guy has some chops, you know?
Thank you.
So very lucky to have heard that.
Oh,
Um, so my first question to you is what got you on into this astrology journey? Because a lot of men usually don't, aren't into it. So
right.
yeah, so that would be my first question to you is how did
Yeah.
you get into astrology and why?
Well, I will say it's kind of in my blood. My dad was a musician, or is a musician. He still is. He still plays in a band. And my mother, who passed away when I was very young, um, she was very much an astrologer, very spiritually gifted. She was Sun, Neptune, and Scorpio. Like she was very. I didn't know her. She was 6 years old when she passed away. So all the stories that I hear from my father about her are just all these very magical, spiritual kinds of stories that were always so enticing to me. And I grew up as a musician. I've had drumsticks in my hand before I was a year old. I've been playing drums my whole life, and I started playing guitar when I was 8 and singing, and then I was in a band when I was 14, and I had some pretty decent amount of success as a teenager playing in a heavy metal band in the mid 2000s. So I'm 32, so I was 14 in 2005, and things really started happening as a musician. And before that, my dad would always kind of make fun of me. He's like, "Oh, you're an Aries, like, you're lazy, this and that," which is definitely not Aries at all. But my dad, he would always kind of, poke fun at me and using astrology. I'm like, "What is this?" And I had a computer and the internet when I was 10 years old. So this is 2000, right? So I had my own computer in my own room and doing a lot of research on my own. And every time like I would hear something about astrology, I'd be on the computer like searching things, because I was always downloading music and being, I don't know, we were kind of pioneering what the internet was because it was such an open thing. And
Yeah.
really what opened the door for me, because astrology was always in the conversation in my household with my dad, right? And obviously, music was a massive part of that. My dad was playing in bands and recording albums in the house. It was just that was what our life was.
Yeah.
And really, where my astrological journey really began was in 2002. It had to have been 2002. I was 12 years old. I was in seventh grade, and I was a bit of a troublemaker in school. Not bad, but I was rebellious, very rebellious. I had to ask all the questions why. Why this? Why that? I don't understand this. Like, I would find solutions to problems that had nothing to do with what they were teaching me, but I would always find my own way, and it was never right. It was just, I'm Saturn in Aquarius on my midheaven, so it's like no matter what, I'm always gonna find my own path to, get to a solution. And that year in 2002, I got in trouble in school, and my dad was pretty hardcore, like disciplinarian. He's Sun 10th house, very Capricorn, Leo kind of vibe, right? Um, so I get home from school. I'm like, oh man, my dad's gonna kick my ass, like, because they called my dad at work, and when that happens, he's never in a good mood. So, and when he got home, he did kick my ass, right? So he pulls out this old astrology book, and it was old and beat up, and it's called Heaven Knows What. And I think if anybody who is connoisseur of astrology and astrology books, and you know this book. This book is very popular,
Yeah.
even back in the '60s and '70s. It's an old book. So my dad pulls out this book and he opens it up to the moon in Sagittarius, right? So I'm moon in Sag, and he makes me read. He's like, read this shit. And I was like, all right. So I read it and I was just like, wow, and I'm 12 years old and it just resonated with me deeply. And I was like, wow, I was really infatuated with it. And I just started looking through the book, and my mom's handwriting is all through the book,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Yeah. And um, in that Heaven Knows What book, if you know the book, there's blank charts in there, right?
Right.
That you
Too.
can do by hand. So this book is way before we had Astro Gold or these Solar Fire, these programs, like, you know, things had to be done by hand and calculated. And, there was just all these notes left from my mom's, and her handwriting and charts that were written out. And it just, that was one thing. Cause, she passed away when I was 6. So I don't even know the sound of her voice, but, you know,
Yeah.
seeing her handwriting really hit me hard. Like it was like, wow. Like, because I look at my dad's handwriting, I know his handwriting. I just know my grandmother's handwriting. I know, I see it. I can just tell. It's like a fingerprint. So that was the moment where it was like I was just drawn to it, and it felt like it was this sort of communication, right? And you know,
A connection to your mom.
absolutely. And you know, uh that was where it started for me. So having my own computer and having the internet access at my fingertips, it was just like every day, If I'm not playing guitar, if I'm not writing songs or jamming with my dad, like that's what I was into, and it started that young for me. And that, it wasn't just some like here and there kind of thing. It was something I was very interested in,
Yeah,
much more than school.
you took a deep dive very young. So that's
Deep.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always dabbled it. I mean, my story is the same in the sense of I still have my parents, but
Right.
I just would always like get the papers and like go to the horoscope and
Hmm.
just so lame now that you think about it, because
Well, that's all we had.
right. No, I know, but it's such basic bitch astrology, it's
Yeah.
like Scorpio,
Yeah.
whatever is that day. And it's just
Yeah.
like people don't realize there's just so much more to it than that. But I mean,
Yeah.
clockwork, I would always just go like, what's the
Yeah.
horoscope? Always drawn to it,
Yeah.
Obviously, I've never gone into the deep dive like you have to become an astrologer, but
Right.
I just love it so much and I find it so fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's such a way to communicate with the universe and get connected, um,
Hmm.
and knowing yourself, not only for other people, but for
Right.
yourself, like to really
Hmm.
to know yourself and like, shit, why am I like this? Why? Because
Yeah.
each person has their own blueprint.
Yep.
And that's what it is. The gene keys, astrology, human design, all of it is your own signature, your blueprint of how you
Absolutely.
function, what makes you thrive, how, what are your defaults, what are your faults, all of those things,
Yeah.
you know, you can't change them, but at least you can try and overcome the hurdles because they are going to come, and
Hmm.
how you can tolerate them and get through them a little bit better. So,
Yeah.
I think people just dismiss it because of that old basic bitch astrology, and
I agree.
yeah, and
Totally agree.
yeah. So to me, it's just every day, I listen to somebody like you or David, like we were talking about, and
Yep.
just kind of let you guys do the astrology part. And I'm like, that makes sense. I always
Yeah.
look at my chart, but to see
Hmm.
what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not like a daily deep dive,
Yeah.
So I commend anybody who has become an astrologer because it's not easy work at all.
It's not. It's
It's
not.
not.
And like you said, like the old paradigm of all we had access to was very surface level and very basic. And even myself, like as much as I was diving into it at a young age, it wasn't really until I was 19 where the bigger picture started clicking
Okay.
beyond just, you know, knowing the signs and knowing, actually understanding the astronomy and connecting the whole picture and understanding the cycles and understanding the perfection of it and the consistency of what it truly is, and that this is the only thing that's actually truly constant in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't.
Everything else is subjected to change immediately, but
Yeah.
we can count on the cycles of each planet in our solar system maintaining its, you know, constant motion.
Yeah.
So, and now that didn't click for me until I was 19, around my North Node return. So when you're 18, 19, you have your North Node return.
Okay.
So then that was the moment where that started sinking in beyond just the basic bitch shit, like you said.
Yeah.
And it's an everyday journey, and definitely people like David who has totally pioneered and trailblazed and broke the ice. I give him the credit for breaking the ice to a lot of people to actually see it for what it is. And there's a lot of TikTok astrology and blah blah blah, but the ones who are out there really getting to the depths and helping people understand it, um, like I have to give it to them. And David is one of those people where it's just like watching his work, you're learning. You're
Yeah.
not just consuming, like you are learning and taking it in. And I think a lot of people who have been involved in his community and definitely the other astrologers who are also getting into the core of what it actually is historically, and astronomically, they're learning. And I think that's why we do seek the content, you
Yeah.
know, and thank God that we do have that now because that's how this matrix is starting to crumble.
And I
you know,
think it's accelerating because of spirituality. Eventually, it leads you to this, right? Because
yeah,
there is just no way that you can be spiritually connected to the cosmos, to God, to the universe, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
whatever you want to call it, whatever you
hmm,
subscribe to your God, or
yeah,
even if you don't believe in God, let's say, but
right,
most likely you won't follow astrology if you don't believe in God. But
yeah,
if you're spiritual in any which way, you realize that that is truth. It's really the only truth
the
in
only truth.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's the only truth, and it's the only thing that's constant that we can rely on.
yeah,
And like you said, everything else changes. So for me, it's just like it's truly magical. And the more humanity wakes up, that's why we're seeing this influx of now, like, these TikTok astrologers and this,
yeah.
it's kind of going to the basic astrology, but the ones that are connecting like you, like David, like Nathaniel,
Evan,
Evan,
who
sorry.
is a TikTok astrologer, he got
Yes.
famous off TikTok,
Oh,
but
really?
he's a really good friend of mine, and he is a badass astrologer.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I think that there's more of that connection, have made that connection of like, this is beyond real. This is
yeah,
what's real, not this.
no,
What's going on here in this
yeah,
matrix, slave system, that we're trapped in.
exactly. And with Pluto and Aquarius, like that slave system is being, it's changing.
Yeah.
I mean, we see that in Europe right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. And
It's
I think
incredible.
they've pretty much won the farmers. They've like
Yeah.
the EU has given into them, and they're like,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
so
It's
that's
amazing.
what it's going to take
Yeah.
for society to wake up. I mean, and I think
Hmm.
we're going to go through our own revolution here in America, um,
Yeah.
like that. It's a matter of whether or not people stay in the paradigm of the left and right, or are we going to come together and just say, no, there's no left and right. This whole system is fucked. Let's change it.
Right. Well, I
You-
think these eclipses in April
yeah.
and whatever's happening down south is going to be a massive trigger for that. Because I feel like in Europe, like things are just happening very rapidly. Here, we're still just kind of in our own worlds and stuff because we're not necessarily challenged face to face and
Yeah.
with it every day just yet, even though we are, but not really.
Yeah.
But I think in April, I think there are going to be some things that these eclipses bring to a head that people here in our part of the world are going to have to, you know, recognize,
Yeah.
and
And
it's
come to
positive.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. I'm ready for the wreckage. I'm ready
I'm
for all
I'm
hell
ready
to
to,
break loose. I'm like, let's do
yeah,
this,
let's get it over with.
Yeah, I'm like,
Mm.
let's do this, let's band together, but
Mhm.
I'm sure a lot of people don't see it that way. They're
They
more,
will though. They
yeah,
will.
yeah, they're
It's
more in
hard.
the pure consciousness right now. But
Yeah.
my fingers are crossed that people wake up and see that it's all divide and conquer,
It
and
is.
it's getting old.
Yeah.
We're getting sick of it. We're
Yeah.
waking up to it. We're just tired of it. We're like, why?
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, if we look at, every the big talk right now is Pluto moving into Aquarius.
mhm,
So if you really want to kind of see where this is going, look back 250 years of the last time Pluto was exactly where it's at now, and that was the Revolutionary War and the Declaration of Independence being signed. I mean, and that was the moment, and when France declared the United States as an actual nation in the world, and let the world know. So, I mean, that's what happened now, or and I think that's where we're at, is that we're finally revamping this world that we've been a part of for 250 years, and we're making corrections. I think it's more about making corrections. But I think really the truth lies in where we were at 250 years ago and
right.
where we're at now. I mean, it's an obvious reflection. We can look back when, our founding fathers left Britain and we're like, fuck you guys. Like, we're going to do our own thing. That's kind of where we're at now. People are saying, like, screw this. We want to do our own thing and we want to take the power back. And that's what Aquarius is all about. So that's the most exciting thing, I think, for this year.
Absolutely. I think it's exciting times. And
Mm-hmm.
and I like I said, I can't wait for the change, and for society like to start stepping up and
Yeah.
really, empowering themselves and realizing
Mm-hmm.
nobody honestly, nobody has authority over us. Not because they're elected, not because we gave them this power or put them
Mm-hmm.
in office. Nobody has any authority over us at
Yep.
all,
No.
at all.
Yep.
Point blank, period. And so, but that means society has to grow up, right? Grow the
Mm-hmm.
fuck up and
Yep.
take responsibility for themselves, and stop depending on government.
Right.
And that's a big task.
Yep.
It's a big task because people like being taken care of. They're lazy. They like being entertained. They like, having the easy life. They like having,
Yep.
things brought to them by a fucking Uber or,
Yeah.
DoorDash and all,
Yep.
you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
it's going to be hard for a lot of people, I think, if
Yeah.
not self-sufficient and, community minded.
Right.
So
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, like, living in the city. I mean, we both live in Los Angeles, so
yeah.
this is a
Yeah.
wild place. This is
Yeah.
as matrixy as it gets.
I know. We're in the
You
belly
know?
of the beast, yo.
Yes. Which I love it because, like, I am in entertainment and, in the music industry, and there's no other place in the world that I could do that, which I did live in Nashville for 10 years, but it's not the same, when you want to create your own business around that kind of thing. And that's what LA is great for. But also, like, it is like, man, you wake up and you're in the zoo. It's
Yeah.
like a freaking zoo.
100%.
And we're on the west side, so the crazies come out.
Oh
You
yeah, I
know.
see them every night in my alley. I'm like,
Yep.
oh, bro.
Yep.
But it is what it is. So, and I
Yeah.
think when you're high vibing, like that stuff doesn't affect you. Like it doesn't.
No.
You see it, but it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
like infiltrate my life. You know what I mean?
No, no, no.
So it's different.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to we talked about a little bit about how you learned. So you're pretty much self-taught in astrology, correct?
Everything. I think everything I've done in my life, to be honest, I've taught myself. I can't say, oh, I did it on my own. There was always something to look towards, whether it was my father teaching me, skills and life lessons or music, but I always implemented it on my own
Hmm.
and had the drive to want to, you know, push forward with that every day. What nothing was ever just like, oh, here and there. It was everyday effort. But I
Yeah.
always had good people to look towards, in astrology. David was one of those people. Like, I'm a huge Jeffrey Wolf Green fan, and
So,
you know, the evolutionary astrology side of things. I think Chris Brennan is doing amazing work with the Hellenistic side.
I don't know Chris Brennan.
So he does the astrology podcast. It's
Okay,
just
okay,
called the Astrology Podcast. And it's massive. Like, it's a massive YouTube channel. And he focuses more on the Hellenistic side of things, which is, you know, the Hellenistic period of astrology is when Egyptian and Greek astrology kind of merged,
interesting.
which
Okay,
I've been tapping into more lately. I've been really fascinated with it. And David introduced when I spent my time there with him at High Vibe, like he introduced that to me quite a bit, and he was putting a lot of emphasis on it. Maybe not necessarily in uh the content that High Vibe was putting out, but when we were spending time together talking astrology, he emphasized that a lot, and that opened a massive door for me. So that's kind of my journey right now with astrology, is tapping more into the Hellenistic side.
okay.
Um, but
So
yeah, I mean,
let's talk about, sorry to interrupt, but let's talk
no,
about that because I think most people don't know that there's like different versions of astrology. There's the
right.
Vedic, the Western, and your
Hmm.
Hellenistic astrology. Astrology. Can you explain the differences to people who might not know?
Right. So, I mean, Western tropical astrology is based on the seasons, right? It's not based on the constellations. It's based on the ecliptic and, the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn and the cycle of the sun through the seasons, because, back in Roman times, that was the age of Aries. So that's when the sun on the equinox would rise in Aries, right?
Yeah,
So that was the Gregorian calendar, like coming into play, like, or that time system,
right.
like, so we still use, you know, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. March 21st, the sun comes into Aries, right? We're using the seasons. We're not necessarily basing it off of how the mathematics have processed. So now, since 2012, the equinox is like, if you actually look at it, the sun's rising in Aquarius every
Mm,
March 20th and 21st now, right? So that's
right,
where we get the ages from, is when the equinoxes change, and that's every 2000, 2500 years. We're coming out of the age of Pisces now. We're now in Aquarius. But in Western astrology, we're not concerned necessarily with the constellations. We're concerned with the seasons based upon where we are at in the northern and southern hemisphere.
right.
Um, Vedic astrology is different. They're more concerned about the constellations, right? Um, so there isn't really a constant in Vedic astrology. Like, it's kind of hard to latch onto because it's always changing. In Western astrology, we're using the constant of the seasons. Like, we know every March 21st that we have equal day, equal night. We know on June 21st in the summer solstice, we're going to have the longest night of the year. We know that in the fall, when the sun goes to Libra, that we're going to have equal day, equal night. And we know when the sun goes to Capricorn on December 21st that we're going to have the shortest day of the year. So that is a constant that we know is going to happen every single year. We can count on that. In Vedic, I mean, I'm sure they count for that, but they're more concerned with the constellations. Um, and I think there's validity in all forms of astrology because it is cultural too, based
Yeah.
upon where you're at on the earth. So, and,
Kind
I
of like
think
the
with,
story of Jesus in a way. It's cool.
yeah,
It's all the same fucking story, but it's just based on different cultures. People will
yep.
hate me for saying that, but
Hmm.
that's reality.
Yeah. And I think too, that you get into that place, like, I mean, you look at Christianity, and I don't know if you're familiar with astrotheology.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Right. So that was one thing that really fascinated me in 2014 and 2015. That blew my mind, is whenever we started getting into this discussion about astrotheology and how all these religious texts reflect the cosmos and
Hmm.
what we're a part of, and the astrology what we call astrology, right? And like the 12 disciples and the 12 signs of the zodiac and the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12,
I mean, I
and
went down that Santos Bonacci rabbit hole.
Santos. Santos was the man, right? He's gone a little crazy. Santos has
Yeah.
gone a little wild, but man, he really shown the world, and the research that he did and all the talks and the lectures that he put out on YouTube were mind blowing. And Jordan Maxwell as well.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with
Yep.
Jordan?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
he did, and he's not even an astrologer. You know,
Yeah.
he just was interested in all things and truth. And Manly P. Hall as well.
Stanley P. Hall, yeah.
And he did a lot of work on the astrotheology, and I thought his work was amazing. So that blew my mind. And it does show that it's all cultural, but
Yeah.
the story remains constant
Yeah.
because we're all a part of this infinite loop that we call time, but that's all there is.
Yeah.
So,
Even know is speaking of time, we don't even know like 2024, are we really in 2024? Who the fuck knows? With the
no,
calendar system and the
yeah.
Gregorian, and then they switched it,
Hmm.
because whoever, I forget who was it. Was it the Pope that decided to change it into the Julian? It's,
Yeah.
well, who knows
Yeah.
what time and history and all of that
Yeah.
we've been lied to
Yeah.
about our
But we do know that 11,000 years ago that there was a great flood, and
yeah,
previous to that flood there was an ice age, and possibly a civilization previous to that ice age that was possibly wiped out, and we're the leftovers of that trying to pick up the pieces.
yeah, yeah.
And possibly
And we were possibly headed towards that again in a weird way. And people
that's
say
how I
that
feel.
it's like global warming. It's like, no,
Mm,
since I've been alive, we've been in global warming and it's been doomsday for 30 fucking plus years. Like,
right.
give
Yeah.
me, anyhow.
It's true. It's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I digress on that. But
Yeah.
so with astrology, why do you think it is important to understand your chart and not just like, oh, I'm a Scorpio sun, like
Mhm.
really go into depth of somebody understanding their chart and the transits and the
Right.
aspect. A lot of people can't go into the depths of it,
Hmm.
but you can get like a nice understanding of the human being based on all of the planets at that time. But why do you think people don't go into the depths? They just, focus on the sun sign.
Yeah. Well, I could say the reason why people only focus on that, like you just said, is because maybe it hasn't been introduced to them, and there are wonderful astrologers that we've talked about who are really opening the doors for people to understand that. Where 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we weren't on that wavelength
Yeah.
collectively as we are now, like even 5 years ago. But I think the most important thing about understanding your whole chart compared to just your sun sign or your moon sign, honestly, it's funny because even 10 years ago and 5 years ago, I felt like even just in the people I was around who don't know anything about astrology, no one knew their moon sign. No one knew their rising. They're like, yeah, I heard I'm a Libra. That's cool. Now it's like common for everybody to know that.
Right. It's like
They have
the big three.
exactly.
Which I
It's
find
common.
hilarious.
It's a common thing now.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
exciting. That's so cool. But I think the most important thing to understanding your chart for me personally, and we talked about this before we started, you're like, oh, I'm a 12th house sun. I was like, oh, I'm a 12th house sun too, you know? And I'm an Aries and you're a Scorpio. So Mars is very active for us, right? We're more Mars people. And you have Mars and Leo, like you said. So, I mean,
Yeah. In the eighth house.
oh, yeah. The Scorpio's house. So, and this is why it's important to me is understanding where it's at in your chart. So, I always knew that I was an Aries, and my dad would always make fun of me for being an Aries or whatever, in a comical way. And I'm like, oh, wow, I'm fiery, I'm intense, like I played sports growing up, I'm very much like I do things on my own. Like I don't need somebody else to kind of light the fire for me, I'm, like a Libra. Like a Libra kind of needs people around them to get them going and light them up. And, when they don't have that connection or relationship, it's hard for them to get going. I'm very much like I initiate things. That's what Aries does. It starts things. Maybe not finish things the best, but I've always known that about myself, and that kind of displayed itself um, throughout my life when I look at the things that I've done and accomplished and my experiences. But at the same time, I've always had this spiritual connection and this deep spirituality and this like this instinct and this voice within me that has been so strong, you know? And that's different for everyone, but for me, I've always been aware of that, whether that was connected to my mother's death or whatever. I had a very intense paranormal experience when I was 14, which we could talk about, which I think is a big part of my learning journey as well with
Let's talk
astrology.
about it if you're open to it.
Yeah, so I think this goes into like what I'm saying about the chart. So I started, really digging into astrology when I was 12, like we talked about, but right when my music career started happening and the astrology was really coming to was being integrated into myself. It was all happening in parallel for me, like my music career and my experience with astrology. But like one night, like it was around Halloween 2005. I think Jupiter was in Scorpio. It may have been 2006. 2005 or 6. It had to have been 2005 actually. So my band that I was just getting into, we played a show. It was a Halloween show. I remember we dressed up and we played in this barn out in the middle of Missouri somewhere because that's where I was born and raised. So, and that night I went back to my girlfriend's house. We fell asleep, and I know this is hard for people to believe. Like this sounds insane, but I was not alone. So I have, validation in this experience. So we went back, we fell asleep, and I swear to God, we're in the bed. Had to have been 3 or 4 in the morning. We both woke up at the same time. And in the left corner of the room, there, I swear, from ceiling to floor, there's just this white opening of white light just in the fucking room. Like, and it doesn't sound real. It literally looked like CGI. Like I was frozen. She was crying. Like we didn't sleep for 2 days. Like we could not, you can't comprehend it. And I can't even express what it truly uh what? I have no idea whether it's some portal opening up or some alien shit or like I was like maybe that was my mother. Like, you know what I mean? It was all these things, but this also played into my understanding of astrology because that was the moment where I was like, we are a part of something bigger.
Oh,
I can't explain it. I can't waste my time trying to explain it. I can't control it. That is way beyond me, and that is magical and that is beautiful. And that was the moment where I accepted that I am on a journey and I'm not in control. Like I have a purpose, I have a destiny, and I have to make the right decisions within that and
yeah,
within those boundaries, but I'm not in control and I can't explain everything. And if I didn't have that experience, I would be the opposite, right? I'd be much more of a left brain kind of person, right? Of like, I have to get to the bottom of this. I have to understand it. I have to figure it out. But this goes back into what you were asking about why it's important to understand our chart. And for me, like I'm a 12th house Aries sun. And knowing that I've been in Aries and I'm a fire sign and I'm a pioneer. I just do my own thing. But at the same time, this spiritual connection within me that's been so deep and the voice is so loud and the synchronicities that I've experienced in my life, that may not be that way for every Aries sun. But with somebody with the sun in the 12th house, that's that's the experience is learning to surrender and learning to let go. It's not just about being an Aries and a fire sign, right?
yeah,
And I'm sure you can relate as a 12th house sun. That's just like every experience in your life seems to be synchronistic, spiritual, out of your control, and it always takes you to the next place that you want to be, even when it seems like it's all over. Like
yeah,
it's this, I just rather leave this place, right? Because the 12th house is the hidden part of your chart. It's very much the um the spiritual side of your chart. So it's just like, wow, knowing that my son was in the 12th house was helped me understand a lot about what this spiritual experience has been. So if you have 12th house placements or Pisces placements, you can relate. And you have a Mars in the eighth house too. You're talking about it's like, well, you have Mars and Leo in the eighth, but like, Mars was traditionally ruled by Scorpio. So like your Mars is extra, extra powerful in the eighth house, being in its home. in its original home. So knowing that, it's like, you know, you're you're getting, underneath um just the tip of the iceberg, because I think that's what has been missing in astrology. And I think now people are starting to really see that. Like, it's a common question of like, hey, like, where's this at in your chart? What is like, it's more common to be asked what your Venus placement is and where it's at in your chart and this and that. So I think that's, to me, why it's, in a basic way to put it, is why it's important, because just because you have a planet in a sign doesn't always, isn't just the overall description of its meaning or purpose, right? It's really
Yeah.
where it's at in your chart, and definitely like on a solar perspective of like the distance between the planets, right? So like right now we're about to have Mars, Venus, Pluto conjunction. We just had Mercury conjunct Pluto. So
Yeah.
this is a very, and the sun too. So this is a very important aspect of like children being born right now. It's like, you know, just looking at the distance between these personal planets from Pluto itself, it's like what was happening before the birth of your child, between your parents,
Yeah.
right? Like in the distance and the degrees between the planets, just from a solar perspective, without the constellations and without the signs, just
Yeah.
the degrees and the distance between the planets. So there's so many layers to that, but I think that's why it's important to understand all the layers of your chart. Or, like if, seeking something with someone who understands that to really get insight towards that.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, there's so many different reasons why, but that's the basic way to put it, is that it's not just about your sign. It's not just about the planet. It's where it's at in your chart and the distance, um, and the degrees between the planets.
I agree. And
Yeah.
and you hit on a bunch of good spots there in terms of, and not that I want to make it about me, but
Well,
I
this
love,
is your podcast.
well, I know, but I, it's about you, but I
Yeah.
love the story of, when you were 14, because I mean, I've had
Yeah. Yeah.
all kinds of crazy shit happens. I was very young, promiscuous, let alone, and did
Yeah.
drugs, all of that
12th
stuff.
house Venus.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Same.
And I was wild when I was young, and
Yeah.
but I always saw like pop, 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 the trajectory of things happening
Right.
before they happen, and
Right.
it kind of scared me. And in a
Mm-hmm.
way, um, I think I've like contained myself as I've gotten older, because I've gotten scared of, not anymore, but like for a period, like it was funny. I was watching the horoscope that David said the other day of like, Scorpio, you need to start being Scorpio again and like start licking buttholes.
Yeah.
Laugh my
I
ass off,
love him.
because I feel like in a way, a lot of us Scorpios, because we see it, well, in my specific chart, I'm a
Yeah.
12th house sun, my
Mm-hmm.
Mars and Leo in the 8th house, but also the Pisces moon in the 4th house. Hello, like I've seen spirits that, I
Yeah.
think I've been like, and not to go off the rails, but like
Go off the rails, please.
I partied when I was younger, and you know how you have that like sleep paralysis, and you wake up and I literally feel like I've had an entity like on top of me. But
Right.
same thing, going back to your story of like the white light, I've had that happen multiple times where I'm literally
Yeah.
in sleep state and it's dark, but then all of a sudden it's just white as can be, and
Wow.
are the lights on? But I'm still in sleep state.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still in sleep state, but I'm like,
Yeah.
wake. It's just so bizarre to me, and
Yeah.
spirits and all of that. And, there's always spirits around us. That's what people don't understand. If they only knew that the ether, that 90% of it that we don't see, 90% of it, there's spirits all around us all the time.
Yeah.
So this is a mystical planet and mystical realm that we are in, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't even know half of it, right? At
Not
all.
even. No.
But in a way, it just, the power kind of scares me, I'm like, but then I think like, fuck it, I should unleash this power and go crazy and buck wild.
Yeah.
And I got the like kick in the butt from David the other day. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, it's on. Let's do
It's
this.
on.
It does, because I'm older than you. I'm
Yeah.
46, and so
Yeah.
uh my generation, Generation X, was definitely, the latchkey kids, raised without
Right.
parents. We raised ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, I come from my birthing thing is that my mom, got pregnant during the war. So I'm a war kid. So my Aries is South Node. So I'm all about,
South Node
and
areas.
South Node Aries. And so, and they say, and I've had like astrologers say this to me before too, like I will never be happy and if I don't figure out my North Node of relationships. And I'm like, is that right?
Are you
What
Pluto and Libra?
Pluto in Libra? Yes.
So your Pluto is very close to your North Node.
Yeah. Well, am I? I forget. I don't remember my Pluto, and I should know this being
Yeah.
we're in an astrology podcast. I don't remember.
I think
Anyways,
you are.
like I said, I don't
Yeah.
want to think about me. But yeah, is there truth to that like South Node, North Node thing of, that I will, because I'm like you. I'm like, I I left home early. I've,
Yeah.
supported myself since I've been 16.
Yeah.
I've never lived with my parents since then,
Right.
like
Yeah.
I've always been like on my own. And then I went through
Hmm.
where I'm like, I'm fucking tired of like
Yeah.
doing things on my own. But then I have this thing of like, okay, well, people just kind of don't do it fast enough or, good enough. And so it's just
Hmm.
the whole thing. And for me, it's like figuring out relationships and how not to um, push them away with the intensity of my
Right.
nature.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Yeah.
is there truth to that about your South Node and North Node? And like you'll never find happiness in a way if you don't figure the North Node out?
Well, I feel like what I'm if you're Sag rising, your South Node is in your fifth, which is Leo, which is your happiness. And the North Node in Libra in the 11th house, which is your connections and your relationships, with the 11th house being Aquarius and where you're connected and the people you're connected to, and the North Node in Libra. And I'm pretty sure that you have Pluto in Libra. I could be wrong, but Pluto is close to your North Node for sure. So I think coming into this life for you, especially, it is that. I think that's unique to you, in your chart of, this South Node, fifth house kind of thing of,
Yeah.
your happiness and your self-expression. And,
I feel like I can do like everything, I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, like
Hmm.
I try something, I'm usually pretty okay at it or I
Yeah.
excel at it or so
Yeah.
things like I haven't found the thing that like has stuck, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like an ever try new things and then I'm good
And
at
that's
it.
very Libra. That's very North Node Libra. It's like, oh, let's try this. Let's try that. Libra just does too many things at once, But that South
Oh,
Node Aries is like, I just want to get on that one thing and just fucking conquer it. Same with your eighth house Mars. It's just getting on that one thing and just dominating.
yeah.
But that North Node definitely, and it is maybe in your life, you'll do many things and then hone in towards that one thing,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
Whatever. Who says there has to be one thing,
It's true. That's true. That's true. That's true.
there is something to be said about focusing your energy on something that not only, that I love, but also
Yeah.
that servicing and helping the collective out because
Right.
that's really, I love people, man. I love people
Yeah.
but I'm intense.
You are intense. I love it.
you
I
know,
love it.
a lot of people are like, so anyways, I'm not worried about it. I know I'll find my peeps and I have my loyals, but
Yeah.
it's where is my tribe, man?
Well, we're here. We're here together
Yeah, yeah. No, I know.
and sharing this for people. I that's what it is. It's like I love when people like yourself, my father's very much that way. I mean, we look at David Palmer, who we both love, it's like he's very much that kind of guy where he inspires people in that way. My father was that way as well. And, I always strive to be that way and, not let other people's opinions get in the way of
Yeah,
what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. And I admire that about people. I think it's it's not easy to be in that place.
it's not. It's
It's
kind of
not.
lonely road too, in a
It
way.
could be very lonely. And you're 12th house sun, I'm a 12th house sun. It could be lonely.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the thing about the 12th house life is, sometimes you could be in a room full of people and feel alone as a 12th house sun,
Dude, yes.
you know?
I'm like, what is going on here? Do people not see what's going on?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
always my head running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you only knew like what was really happening, it's just
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
fucking monkey mind, or it's just like the gift and the curse of like, in a sense, being a
Yeah.
seer,
Yes.
and seeing like I can see it. Like I can be in a room and I can see this person's going to talk to that person.
Yeah.
This is what's going to happen, and it's crazy, right? So,
Yeah.
anyways,
And
whatever.
it's the thing, like, look, in 2011, that was when it all started clicking for me. And all the things that are happening now, I was saying in 2011.
Yeah,
Not like in detail, but I'm just like it's going down. Whatever it is, it's going down. And we looked to 2020, and I remember saying in 2011 and 2012, I was like 2020, 2020, and that was the moment that it all shifted. Like, and people are like, you're nuts, you're crazy. And I remember my grandma is like one of my best friends. Like I talked to my grandma on the phone for hours,
I love that.
and we'll talk about anything and everything, and that's a very unique thing where, I can express that kind of truth with my grandmother, right?
Yeah,
And she's very, you know, very wise. So I remember just in 2011 and 2012, me and her having 3 hour long conversations about these things, about things are going down. She was like, where are you getting this? This is crazy. This is nuts. Well, I'm like, well, Pluto and Capricorn, like Jupiter, Saturn conjunction, like blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then and same with my dad. My dad thought I was nuts
Mr.
10 years ago.
Astrology at you, right?
Right. And then it was by 2021 and definitely by 2022, like all of those people who were like calling me nuts at that time, we were having open discussions about like, wow, like, I see clearly what the hell's been going on, like it's not hard to miss, that gave me a lot of hope, but also not feeling so alone and feeling so crazy in the 12th house land,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
So, it is that moment. I feel like 12th house people, they have that gift of being able to see ahead, and the thing about Pisces in the 12th house and Neptune is being able to discern what is fact and fiction, what's real, what's delusion, it can feel schizophrenic, It's on that line of reality, like I think us 12th house some people, it's like we're always 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the non-physical and the physical. And that is, like you said, it's a blessing and a curse. And that's what I always say about people with a lot of Pisces and 12th house placements. It is that blessing and a curse, but your gifts are your gifts. And some of the most gifted artists, musicians, poets, spiritual people ever were had a lot of 12th house placements or very strong Neptune or Pisces placements. So
Yeah.
it is that blessing and a curse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So embracing it is and knowing that I think is comforting.
Yeah, and it's taken me a long time,
Yeah.
and it's funny that you mentioned 2011, because I didn't even know that I was having an awakening, and I was having an awakening. Like I went through this whole like complete shift.
Yep.
The
Same.
Matrix got me back, and like I started, like I did start to like veer off, and then of course
Yeah.
I kind of got back, and but I didn't know that things were changing and changing so rapidly, and that
Mm-hmm.
2012 was such a massive year,
Yeah.
and it just naturally was happening, and I had no idea because I kind of stopped following astrology, and I'm like on and off that type of
Yeah.
dabbler.
Right.
Um, but it's just so funny that like you, even if you don't know what is happening, it, the collective, like the energy, you just can't help it. It just
Mm-hmm.
happened to you no matter what, right?
Right. Yep.
And so I just find it so amazing now that now I'm in it and I follow it more, and it's a daily thing. I look at my chart daily. Of course, I don't remember all of it all the time,
Yeah.
but why do you think that this is going to like and this is kind of like a not a sexist question, but why do you think men just find it so funny or like dismiss astrology in your opinion?
This is funny. So, I come from the Midwest, right?
Yeah,
I'm not a California native. I'm not, it's a different culture out here.
yeah.
Coming from the Midwest and being born in the Midwest in the 90s, no cell phones, the internet wasn't a thing yet. My dad is a man's man, right? All of our, his father and all my grandfathers were all military Marine types, right? My dad was the black sheep, even though my dad is very much, military like, like I said, he's sun 10th house. So
Yeah,
very Capricorn,
very
Leo.
Capricorn.
Yeah. And I was raised that way, right? I was raised to make my bed before I eat breakfast, which I don't do now, you know, but it wasn't like a thing. Like even me, I didn't feel comfortable expressing my emotions or my feelings openly, at all. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing as a male to be open about that. Even like, my dad's a heavy metal guy. Like I love heavy metal. I grew up on heavy metal, and 90s alternative grunge music. Like, but I also love pop music. I love punk rock. I love all kinds of music. And I remember specifically being in my room, 9, 10 years old, listening to things that were not so metal. And my dad would walk in and say derogatory things about the music I was listening to, and I'm not going to repeat here so I don't get canceled, but you know, and I think that has a lot to do with it is that programming of overly masculine. And I'm not going to get on that whole trip of, you know, we're moving into a more feminine time, blah, blah, blah. No, I think masculinity's been lost in our culture and it's been suppressed by this matrix
Yeah.
to control, right? But at the same time, it was 2011 when we started seeing the more feminine energy come to the surface, whether that was contrived and manipulated through
Mhm.
propaganda. That's a whole nother conversation and a question. But up until that point, 2010, 2011, definitely by 2012 and 13, and definitely by now, uh, you saw masculinity take a dive. Right. And I think too, that was like the universe always compensates. Right. So it's a pendulum. And for a long time, I think that overly masculine kind of thing uh, was very prominent in Western culture, and especially growing up in the Midwest, basically the South. Like it's it's a weird thing, because I never identified with that, But at the same time, like I'm very masculine in the way I go about my life, but I'm spiritual and I see things from a spiritual perspective without even trying. It was just always a natural state for me. Um, so I think that's been a big thing is that it's hard for men to break free from that program that's downloaded and it's like a default, and it's not very common. Uh, it's become more common for sure, but definitely 10, 15 years ago, it was just like you were judged as a male that, oh, you're not a man, like, oh, astrology, that's for women, this and that. So, because I think astrology too taps into a more intuitive place, which is very feminine,
Mhm.
you know. Um, but at the same time, the ability to channel it and directed outward is very masculine, you
Yeah.
know. So if we get into hermeticism and, a very mercurial way of delivering a message, like it is like trusting your intuition and knowing how to logically put it together in a very masculine way. So it is like, I think astrology has helped me kind of break free from that mold and merge both halves of myself to have more balance in my life. Because in my opinion, this has been very much like matrix kind of programming of like separating and dividing people. You're either masculine or you're either feminine, and I think people who are spiritually gifted have an ability to, you know, see both sides and come at it from both sides and put it into one and deliver it. So I think that has a big part to do with it, is just the programming of what masculine and femininity is in our culture.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing.
And we have both, right? I mean,
Yeah.
every male and female or whatever you subscribe to, that's a whole nother story and podcast.
Yeah, I don't take part in that.
Yeah, me neither. I'm like, I'm not gonna call you your
No,
pronoun. Sorry.
no.
But anyhow, that's another podcast.
Yeah.
Uh we both have feminine and male. Like I have a
Yeah.
lot of masculine energy coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
luckily throughout, my life, I've definitely have learned to soften and rein that in and like be more of the
Yeah.
receiver. Uh,
Right.
but because of how I grew up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I moved out when I was 16, 17. I've supported myself. And it's also that programming of like that feminist movement of like,
Right.
yeah, be that independent woman and boss babe and blah, 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 blah. And I
Yep.
didn't, not realizing that it was to my detriment. Right. And
Right.
now I'm like at 46, no children, no family. And you think back to yourself. I don't regret anything that I've done in my life. It is what it is. It's my story and it's where I'm at, right? But it's just funny the choices that you make unknowingly because you are programmed in a certain way in culture and society and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you have an awakening, and I hate that word so much now, but
I know. I
it's
get it. I get it.
overused, but
Yeah.
you start to realize like, fuck, what role did I play here? And like,
Mm-hmm.
what did I do to myself? Like abandon the most Scorpio thing ever.
Yeah.
Is magnetizing, attracting,
Yeah.
um, and those are such feminine qualities, right?
Right. Yep.
And receiving and allowing and
Yep.
um obsessed over in a way.
Yeah.
I kind of have let that's what I was saying is that I've because I somehow in the process got scared of my power, but then finally realizing like, no, this is not this is not the way to be. This is all programming bullshit, like this boss babe. I realized when I took the last couple of years off that the universe always took care of me. I didn't have to like grind and hustle and blah, blah, blah. I
Right.
just had to like sit back, walk my dog, enjoy my life, be in joy, and things would always work itself out.
Mm-hmm.
I would find a way to make the payments. It all worked out, and it's made
Yeah.
me so much softer and open. And astrology has helped me with that because
Yep.
if I didn't come back to it, I'd still be stuck in this like weird programming of this feminist movement that like has really done women wrong and men, you
I
know?
agree.
Yeah. So for me, I'm super grateful for astrology in that sense because I understood myself. I'm like, no, I'm meant to be like loved. I'm a lover. Like I'm
Right.
legitimately a lover. I love people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's hard for people to receive because
Yeah.
I am an intense like lover and
Right.
in whatever capacity, in conversation or whatever is
Yeah.
just intensity,
Mm-hmm.
and I just have to stop being afraid of being intense. It's who I am,
Right.
you know? Um,
Absolutely.
and I think that's what astrology helps you eventually get to is just
Mm-hmm.
a self acceptance which is hard for a lot of people. And it was
Yeah.
hard for me. I mean, like I said, I'm 46. It's taken me the past 4 years to finally like be like, okay,
Hmm.
this is who I am, accept me or not, or
Yeah.
whatever. I don't give a fuck. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
And I
So
feel like the astrology right now, I think you're channeling it, and whether you know it or not. I mean, because this Chiron North Node conjunction, I think is all of what you're saying is being confused on our true selves and what our identity is, and you're
mm,
expressing where have felt empty or just like not secure in what it is and just confused. I mean, that's what this Chiron in Aries has been when it comes down to our identities as individuals.
mm,
With this Chiron in Aries, this is when we've seen all this kind of LGBTQ trans stuff come up and this confusion of who am I? That's
yeah.
very Aries. It's like, what am I? Who am I? What is my
Mhm.
true self? In building up to this Chiron North Node conjunction, we've seen more people kind of do away with that kind of nonsense and not really lend it any attention anymore
Yeah.
because it really isn't real and it really isn't true. That is very much the South Node Libra of wanting to just partake in all these different groups who just partake in, they want to identify with this, but it's only about identifying it in a group of people. It's
Yeah.
not what your individual self identifies with truly and what that is. And I think here in the next week or so, in the next 2 weeks, Chiron and the North Node are going to conjunct. And I think that's amongst all the crazy world global shit that's going on underneath the surface as individuals, as human beings. I think that where that programming and where that propaganda has harmed us and wounded us as individuals, I think we're starting to move through that and be like, you know what? Like, we don't just have to identify with all of this nonsense just to be a part of something or a group. It's like we're taking our own power back as individuals with this Chiron North Node, and it's allowing us to finally move into a more healing place of getting through that because I think the propaganda has done more damage than good. And we can see that very clearly now. And I
Yeah.
think what you just said channeled all of that perfectly.
Thank you. I think
Yeah.
people are suffering, mentally and not only just on what's going on globally, but internally, what we
Yeah.
have been, programmed into thinking,
Hmm.
blah, 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 all of that is just, it's such falsehood. And it's like,
Yeah.
I, I 100% believe astrology and knowing yourself and your chart will bring you to acceptance and happiness and joy. Because
Yeah.
when you just like, it's freedom, it's true
That was the
freedom.
word that was on my mind as you were saying that was freedom.
Yeah, it's truly freeing to just know, okay, this is how I am. My fucking thoughts, my assets, blah, 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 and that's
Yeah.
what it is. I'm
Yeah.
gonna work with it and with what I got.
Yeah. But also too, I mean, look at the history of astrology and
Yeah,
look at how it's been treated.
yeah,
Look at
yeah,
how it's been suppressed and hidden and made out to be, you know, and every time it resurfaces, they do everything they can to try to separate it from us. I mean, that's what happened 2 years ago. Like if you're on Facebook and you have a spiritual business or you're an astrologer and you want to run marketing ads through Facebook, you can't run ads as an astrologer on Facebook. If it has the word astrology in it, you are not allowed to run ads.
yeah.
They
It's
ban your ad account.
yeah,
Like they're doing whatever they can to suppress it because when you really get to know yourself, you can't be controlled.
yeah, yeah,
Astrology allows people to really get to know themselves, like you said. And, when you break free from that and you break free from your programming, which to me, astrology allows us to have the opportunity to overcome, um, you can't be controlled by a system that just wants to hold you back. And
yeah,
I think that's why for thousands of years, astrology has been demonized in religious sectors but also has been hidden in plain sight at the
yeah,
same time, right in front of your face. And honestly, it is right in front of your face every time you walk outside.
yeah.
So
Pretty much every night looking at the
yeah,
stars.
yeah.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
It is.
Well, I've enjoyed this conversation, but
Me too.
I've also want to be honorable to your time. And I know we discussed about like what each sign, like maybe
Yeah,
piece of advice for each sign. If you're still open to doing that, or if you
sure.
have time, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Let me know. But yeah, it would be great to know like a little piece of advice for each astrological sign if you
Mm-hmm.
are willing to do that. Obviously,
Yeah,
as a collective, each sign difference, you know,
sure. Of
depending on
course.
the chart and all of that. But
Mm-hmm.
collective, there is an energy. So,
Yeah.
do you want to run through those?
Let's tap into it.
All
I
right.
think I think for Aries people, especially with this North Node and these eclipses happening in your first house, um, this year is a massive change for you. And depending on how old you are, if you look back to 2005, look at how then has played into now, and definitely 2015, and how your life has changed through this nodal cycle throughout 18 years. And with this Chiron on the North Node happening in your first house, it's like, your identity is changing massively. You're given the opportunity in this time to overcome a lot of different areas where, you've felt a little debilitated or wounded. And now karmically, doors are starting to open up through these eclipses for Aries people, in ways where they can really take charge and push forward very fast. So I think this year is one of the most important years for Aries people and Libra. So when we get to Libra, we'll get there. But for Taurus people, Taurus is the star of the show for
Oh
2020
yeah.
by far. Yeah. So I'm
Okay.
Taurus rising. I'm Venus Taurus. I'm excited. So if you're a Taurus, this is your year, and definitely for these first 5 months here, you want to kick ass as much as you can before the planets start going retrograde, because Jupiter in Taurus, Jupiter Uranus conjunction in Taurus, the sun in Jupiter conjunction at 28 degrees at the end of May. I mean, Taurus is the star of the show this year. You have it easy. And Taurus hasn't had it easy since 2011. Taurus is, they've had Uranus in the 12th house and Aries with the Pluto squares through the 2010s. I mean, Taurus has kind of been going through it. So this is the moment where Taurus really starts to break out and, expand their lives in such really massive, powerful ways. And Taurus really this year has the opportunity to really manifest and expand their lives in ways that, they haven't had an opportunity in 12 years to do so. So Taurus this year is very, very, very lucky, and the blessings are on your side. Jupiter's on your side. And I'm not one of these astrologers who's just like, oh my God, Jupiter's in your sign. Like, you're so lucky and, you're going to get rich. But this is the opportunity for you to really manifest, because Taurus is the master manifester, right? And with Jupiter here and Uranus, we ain't going to get that again. Now, the last time Jupiter and Uranus conjunct in Taurus was 1940. So it's a long time before we'll see Jupiter and Uranus conjunct in Taurus again. A long time. So
Interesting.
this is rare. This is a rare moment for Taurus, and you're gonna have an amazing year. And I'm excited. So, but yeah, for Gemini, you know, Saturn's in Pisces. Neptune's still in Pisces. Jupiter is gonna move into Gemini this year. So I think Gemini is definitely in a weird spot, but at the same time, like, there's definitely new connections being made in Gemini's life, especially in their career. I think massive changes are happening for Gemini in their career. And Jupiter coming into your first house, Jupiter coming out of your 12th house, like, you've learned a lot of spiritual lessons, and your spiritual life has expanded in big ways over the past year. And Jupiter coming into your first house, I think, now you can start to see the benefits of what these spiritual lessons have been. And I think it's going to affect your career as well. And Jupiter will square Saturn, so there might be some challenges to your first house and your 10th house. So, you know, there could be some career changes for you this year for sure. But with
Mm,
Jupiter coming into your sign, there's, a good, you have a good support system. But the thing is, and I think what is funny is that every 12 months, the sun and Jupiter conjunct, right? And once a year.
mhm.
But this year, the sun and Jupiter are going to conjunct at 28 degrees Taurus. And then right after that, just a few days after that, Jupiter is going to move into Gemini. So this Gemini Jupiter cycle will not meet with the sun. So
Mm.
Jupiter will conjunct in Cancer in 2025. It will not conjunct in Gemini. So the thing is for Gemini, you may not see results very quickly. This may be, you know, a more long-term process for what Gemini is really expanding upon in their lives, in their selves, their identities, you know. So this is an interesting year for Gemini people, you know, very much so. Yeah. And then Cancer, Pluto's finally finishing up. In Capricorn. I mean, it's been a long 15 years for Cancer people, you know, of just, you know, in the relationships, it's been just a massive transformation and, you know, what relationships are. You know, I think we see that in the world too. You know, the old paradigm of what relationships and Capricorn structures are, you know, the institution of marriage. We talked about that before we started, you know, that whole thing, that's all changed and shifted, you know, and I think the way Cancer is starting to, you know, come out of its shell, um, is very exciting for Cancer finally. And you know, you're gonna have Jupiter in your 12th house, so you're entering into a more spiritual place right now, and you're expanding your spiritual life. And that's gonna be great because by the time you get to 2025, Pluto's gonna be officially for good in Aquarius. It's gonna be done with Capricorn, and then you're gonna have Sun, Jupiter conjunction in Cancer. So I think Cancer is coming out of a long period of transformation, big time, and this is the moment where you start to feel that kick up and you know, Pluto will dip back into Capricorn later through in the year, and that's when shit's gonna get real intense. But that's the final swing. That's the final boss battle, so to say, for Cancer.
Yeah.
So you know, you're starting to get a glimpse of what that's gonna feel like right now with Pluto in Aquarius and Mercury and Mars and Venus coming into Aquarius. You're starting to get a glimpse now. So um, Cancer is entering into a much better place, and you have learned a lot of lessons, you know, but the spiritual lessons are now starting to expand, and the spiritual gifts are expanding too with Jupiter in your 12th. So coming in when Jupiter comes into Gemini, it'll be in Cancer's 12th house. So yeah, for Leo, Pluto's in Aquarius. So this is where Leo is, you know, having to step down off the pedestal a little bit and, you know, learn how to connect more and not just be in its own.
Kingdom.
Exactly. Which is great because, you know, I look at Pluto and Leo back in the 40s, right? So I love music. I love great musicians. I look at all my favorite musicians from the 60s and they were all Pluto Leo people, right? So those Pluto Leo people set the tone for what pop culture is now. We all look at that era of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s as the greatest time ever on earth when it comes to culture and music and art and self-expression. We look at that world and it's just the best, right? The John Lennons and the Jimi Hendrix, you know, all those wonderful people. But now that world's dead. It's over. So Leo is having to adapt and transform its ways and how to connect with people in a different level and, you know, want to participate more, you know. But at the same time, with Leo people, with Pluto here, it's like you don't want to completely kill off that ego and that, you know, that strong personality. You want to learn how to integrate it, you know, in a much more powerful way. And I think when you really learn how to integrate that very strong self and that light in collaboration with the group, I think that's where Leo's really going to thrive, you know, and it's all about relationships, you know, and transforming the idea about relationships. So yeah, Leo's going through a massive transformation. So it's going to take some adjustment. And I think by 2025, Leo will really start to feel that frequency even stronger, you know, because it's kind of in and out right now with Pluto dancing around Capricorn and Aquarius for the rest of the year. But yeah, Leo is entering into a new space, and I think it's very powerful. But that old Pluto Leo world is gone.
Mm.
So as much as we love it, I love it still, but it's a whole new paradigm. So yeah, so for Virgo, um, with Saturn in your seventh, Neptune in the seventh, I mean, relationships have been so confusing and challenging, and a lot of lessons in relationships have come up big time. Virgo's about to have their full moon here on the 24th. So this is the end of a new cycle that Virgo's coming into, and when it comes to relationships, this full moon's gonna oppose Saturn, and then we're gonna have a Sun Mercury Saturn conjunction in Pisces. So for Virgo, it's all about relationships, and it's been kind of confusing for Virgo. I mean, Virgo gets a bad rap. Virgo, is always a
I was
sign.
gonna say, I'm like,
Yeah.
gotten on with Virgos, whatever.
Yeah.
No offense.
No, I love Virgo. I really do. But at the same time, it's been very confusing, and getting in weird situations, and it's never what you thought it was, and meeting people that you get kind of delusional about, and you're never sure about. But that's the lesson with Saturn and Pisces and in your seventh is that, you really got to discern the relationships that you're getting into and, be willing to not be afraid of connecting with people and entering into new relationships with people based upon the fear that can come out of like some of the things that have fallen away in Virgo's relationship life. With Neptune there, it just seems like when Virgo gets into a new relationship, it just kind of like dissolves into nothing in a matter of time. So I think this is where with Saturn here in Virgo's seventh house too, is this is when those lessons can be learned and the physical reality of the relationship life can start to manifest, but only if you're willing to discern and do the hard work and face the hard lessons, right? So yeah, Virgo, it's been tough with Neptune opposing their sun, in their first house. It's been tough since 2011. Virgo has not had it easy, and definitely Saturn's not making it any easier for them. So God bless you. But
Love
it's about the
Virgo.
lessons. Yeah. And for Libra, I mean, same thing. You got the South Node in your first, these eclipses. I mean, it's learning how to not be caught in weird relationships and too many relationships and getting caught up in all the codependent weirdness and all that nonsense, So Libra hasn't had it easy as well with these nodes here, being on the South Node. South Node transits aren't always the easiest, but it's learning to let go of, where relationships have just not worked out and where it's just you get caught up in too many things at once. We talked about that earlier about Libra. It's just, oh, I want to be with this person. I want to be with that person. Oh, but like, you make five plans on the same day with five different people, and then you got to explain why.
Yeah,
You know, like it's very much what Libra's going through right now with the South Node is learning how to, you know, follow that North Node and be much more independent and on your own, and definitely overcoming a lot of these identity wounds because Libra identifies with the people that they're involved with, right? Aries identifies with itself.
yeah,
And where Libra is identifying is, with too many people right now and not, I think with these eclipses is really going to bring some massive change in that area and force you to really assess that kind of thing. So, these eclipses are bringing massive change in your relationship life, and it's changing who you are as an individual with the South Node in your first house. So that's the main focus for you because the nodes aren't leaving Aries and Libra until January.
yeah,
So this is the rest of 2025 for you is very much about that, and codependency. I know Pisces in the 12th house gets associated with codependency in a much more non-physical way, in an unconditional way. But Libra is much more codependent in a conditional way.
yeah,
Like, I need this, I need that, and I need this, and I need my massage, and I need, to be taken care of, and I need my best makeup and this and that. And if I don't have this, then, I can't be with you. Like, very kind, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Bougie.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you don't always have to have strong conditions, in that regard. So letting go a lot of that stuff and the material stuff too for Libra. I think they're overcoming this year big time because the world has kind of shifted beyond that, I think. Um, but yeah, Scorpio, Uranus and Jupiter and Taurus in your seventh house. I think relationships and connections and new relationships coming into your life and expanding into your life, but like very much in odd ways, in the most unexpected ways, in a very big way, and strange with strange people and people you never thought you would connect with or have relationships with, but it could be like very fast and rapid and they can come, you know, things can come in quick and leave just as fast, right? And it can be an abundance of that, an abundance of relationships. So it's really like getting down to what Jupiter and Uranus is all about. It's like, okay, like what is really truly valuable in a relationship? And what do I really want to expand on? And this Jupiter Uranus conjunction for Scorpio, I think, is going to be really massive when it comes to relationships. Because Jupiter was in Scorpio in 2018. So, I mean, we have to look back to 2018 and where you were in 2018 when Jupiter was in your sign and how that has kind of flip-flopped into this moment here because Uranus came into Taurus in 2018 when Jupiter was in Scorpio. So, I think relationships for Scorpio is amazing this year. But it's amazing in a sense of like accepting that, like, it the relationships that are coming into your life and are expanding in your life. Um, it's not this idealized knight in shining armor version. It's more of like new people coming into your life and new connections being made. And it's like, wow, I didn't really think that I would be attracted to this kind of person or be wanting to spend my time with this kind of person or someone of another culture or another, it's very Uranus, very Aquarius. It's like, connecting with people from other places and other parts of the world, or maybe people come into your life who speak different languages than you, and I just think relationships for Scorpio are a massive thing coming in this year, but also like accepting that, like, wow, like it's not just what I thought it was and what I hoped it was, because the moment you think it's going to be what you wanted, it's going to be way different and it's never going to be what you expected. And the people coming into your life are going to come in unexpectedly and you might fall in love unexpectedly and you might fall out of love unexpectedly. And yeah, I think that's a really, I think it's a great time for Scorpio. I really do. Scorpio hasn't had it easy as well since 2018. And even that Jupiter and Scorpio wasn't easy as well in 2018. That was not an easy Jupiter transit. Jupiter and Scorpio transits are not easy, but Taurus Jupiter transits are always awesome, especially with Uranus. So massive relationship stuff for Scorpio this year. Sagittarius has been in a weird place too with Neptune here, and it's kind of Sagittarius has kind of felt alone on its journey. Um, you know, I think its environments has been very odd. It's I think a lot of changes in Sagittarius environments have been very strange to deal with. Um, and definitely in the home environment and family situations, with your third and fourth house. Um, it's been challenging in that area, in your environment and in your family life. It's been really challenging because Sagittarius really just wants to kind of go off and do its own journey, right? Like, I think when the South Node was in Sagittarius and the North Node was in Gemini, it was like Sagittarius really kind of got suppressed there, and it was like, fuck, I can't just really go wherever I want and do whatever I want and take the journeys that I want. And especially with all this fourth house energy, in Pisces, it's very much like focusing on the home life, and really getting things in order in your home life and learning a lot of difficult lessons in what it really means to nurture yourself, nurture your family, be with your family, or maybe um you haven't been connected with your family, with Saturn and Neptune there, and a lot of confusion when it comes to your family area, with this North Node in Aries too. It's like, you're learning so many new things at the same time. Like there's so much new energy coming in for, Sagittarius, but also a lot of difficulty and a lot of tests when it comes to like their personal lives and their environment and where they are, where they feel safe and where they feel secure. And definitely where Sagittarius is feeling, or where Sagittarius is trying to feel safe and secure. It's been confusing for a Sag for a long time. So I definitely think with this North Node in Aries, it's like the karmic lessons that you're learning is learning how to just be yourself amongst, you know, your roots. And, a lot of that fourth house kind of Cancerian vibration. I mean, Sagittarius doesn't really do well with that. They don't like to be in one place at one time. They want to be everywhere all at once, and learn new things. But I think where you're learning is really about the basics. I think Sagittarius is in this phase of like getting back to the basics, what's really important and what really matters, and matters of the heart. And I think by the time the North Node comes into Sagittarius, years from now, then it'll be like it's your time to go. It's your time to fucking go to outer space and discover some new things. But right now, it's like getting back to the basics for Sagittarius, and kind of breaking through the fog, and finding somewhere to really be secure and comfortable for Sag. So, yeah. And for Capricorn, same thing. Pluto is almost done with you. So, Capricorn has overcome so many different versions of yourself the past 15 years, and all these different versions of yourself have been like, you look back over the past 15 years, it's like, oh, in this era I was this. It's kind of funny because you see on the internet and the Instagram, oh, I'm in my blah 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 era, right? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
You see like, oh, I'm in my Kim Kardashian era, like, or whatever. Like, that's kind of what Capricorn's been going through. It's like they've just had all these different eras through Pluto Capricorn. And now is the time where you can look back and analyze that massive transformation of really trying to find yourself, and focus that into really who you are, especially with this Chiron Aries North Node conjunction. It's like that's what you're being called to do right now. And definitely in your career, in your identity, in your career, and where you felt the difficulty in your career, I think karmically, um, that's starting to really shift and change. And I think it comes down to how your identity's transformed big time over the past 15 years and what your career is going to look like. Um, and definitely, like letting go of things in your fourth house where you've kind of been stuck and haven't been willing uh to let go, you know? And it's just, yeah, it's been very much a massive transformation with Capricorn people. I know some personally, and they've had it the hardest, so it's all the different versions of yourself converging into one and being able to analyze all those eras, to really get down to who you're going to be after this Pluto leaves Capricorn for good, because it will dip back into Capricorn later this year. And yeah, so God bless you, Capricorn, because you are finally out of the woods.
Yeah.
After this year, you'll be out of the woods.
Yeah.
When Pluto's back into Aquarius for good, then it's like, okay, I can see very clearly what it's been in the ladder and the mountain that I've climbed, and I've gotten to this point. Um, so yeah, it's very much it's a challenge, with the South Node in the 10th. Like it's letting go of a lot of different, you know, how you see yourself in the world, you know. I think Capricorn always wants to project an image of how it is in the world. It's like, oh, I want to be this identity in the world, and this is how I want to be received. But, you know, this is a moment where it's letting go of any false identities or ideologies or beliefs about that vision and that view of yourself in the world. So, yeah, these nodes in their fourth and 10th house, all of that is changing massively. Your career is changing, your identity is changing, and you're done with Pluto. So, good for you.
I have
um,
high hopes for Capricorns. I
I
hope
do.
I have
I,
three of them in my life, and I'm like, what's happening?
yes, big time.
Yeah,
Capricorn is they really do set the foundation.
they
They
do.
really
They
do.
do. Yeah.
Aquarius, Pluto's in your sign, Mars and Venus, Mercury all in your sign. This new moon today happening right now. This is your new moon. So this is the cycle where Aquarius is like, okay, like this is my vibe. I am done with Pluto, my 12th house. You've had this spiritual transformation that's been so deep, and definitely dark. I mean, this Pluto 12th house for Aquarius people has been it's been dark, and a lot of deaths and rebirths and getting to the top and then falling and then falling into nothingness because it's the 12th house. So it's totally, there's nothing physical in the 12th house. So these deaths have been non-physical deaths. You've kind of had one foot in, one foot out of the physical reality and the non-physical, and you've come face to face with death and whatever that looks like, whether it's actual death or the death of yourself or the death of your soul. You have gone through the hardest transit with this Pluto that you can go through. Pluto in the 12th house, I think, is one of the hardest transits. Pluto in the Saturn in the 12th as well, but the malefics in the 12th are not easy. So Pluto coming into Aquarius, you're getting a taste of, okay, like I'm taking my power back, and this is next 19 years is a radical transformation of yourself and who you are and what your identity is, what you identify with. Um, and I think too, with all these personal planets, and this is what I found so fascinating with Pluto coming into Aquarius with the sun, Mercury and Pluto conjunct just a few days ago. Mars and Venus are about to conjunct Pluto and come into Aquarius. All the main personal planets, Mercury, Mars, and Venus, all conjuncting Pluto right when Pluto comes into Aquarius with the sun. I feel like this new moon, yeah,
Yeah.
this new moon is whenever you're getting a taste of what that's gonna be, and you're starting to look back. It's like, oh, thank God I made it. Like I'm fucking alive. I can't believe I'm alive. I made it. Like this is Aquarius's moment to really break free. And yeah, I think it's about time for Aquarius to really experience the light here because they've been in the dark. So
Um,
I'm excited for Aquarius people, and especially look back to 2021 where Saturn and Jupiter conjunct in Aquarius at 0 degrees. Look at where that happened and what happened during that time, December 2021. Um or 2020, my bad. Going into 2021. Uh that was a big trigger for what you're about to go through and what you're about to expand and the lessons that you've learned. So Aquarius is in a new wave here. And for Pisces, with Saturn and Neptune in your first house, it's like, you're learning the hardest lessons with yourself and your identity right now, and a lot of the confusion that you've been going through. Um, you're learning a lot of lessons in that area. It's not been easy for Pisces as well. So, but I think too, Pisces tends to get a little out in the clouds, right? And I think what Saturn in Pisces teaches us is to take all of our Pisces magic and our Pisces gifts and our creative Piscean abilities. And Pisces has such strong spiritual gifts. That like Pisces sometimes has a hard time being able to make it real and physical, right? So Saturn is helping Pisces come to a place where they can understand, and the lessons that Saturn's teaching Pisces is to learn how to channel all of their out of this world gifts into the world and to make it real, to really be of service of people, because that's what Pisces does best, is to serve others and to serve the collective and heal people with their spirituality or their music or their art or their creativity, and in service of others. I think if you have Pisces placements or you have 12th house placements, that is your role in this life, is to really serve others through your gifts and your spiritual gifts and your creative gifts. And so I think Saturn within your first house is helping you make it real. finally, because Neptune being in your first and you had Saturn in your 12th. Um, uh, yeah, when Saturn was in your 12th, that was a very hard place. It's like, I don't even know what's real, but I think that's kind of has taught you, like, you know what? Like, when I can really get over my patterns, my addictive behaviors, and where I just want to check out from reality, um, I think that's when you can finally come to a place where you can make those real. Because I think, all Pisces people really want to serve people and help people on a spiritual level and a creative level. Pisces people or 12th house people, they're the most magical, gifted people on the planet. And sometimes it's hard for them to exist in this place. And I think Saturn's helping you. So, you know, if you're caught up in the addictive parts of, the Pisces behaviors and 12th house stuff, or just wanting to check out from reality, Saturn's going to really smack you in the ass. But if you're really doing the work and being realistic and listening to Saturn, Saturn's going to open up doors for you and reward you for doing the work and getting over a lot of those, you know, the shadow of Pisces, so to say. So Pisces is having some big lessons in who they are and what their identity is and getting over a lot of, you know, dark stuff. I mean, Saturn in your 12th could be very dark, but I think too, I love this too. And I know I'm going off on Pisces here, but I love Saturn and Pisces. And I say that because in 1967, Saturn was in Pisces. That was the hippie revolution, right? That was the spiritual revolution, the Beatles, like all that shit, which I love. I love all that music. And in 1994, Saturn in Pisces, some of my favorite music and my favorite art came out in that time. And it's like those Saturn Pisces era, when it comes to the art and the music and the spirituality, it's the best times. Also, there's the shadow of that of people just taking too much acid and just losing their minds, right? So you don't want to fall into that place. And that's what I'm really trying to say about the Saturn Pisces transit is that you can really channel your gifts, if you're being realistic and staying grounded and doing the work. And it's funny because I was thinking about this yesterday, is that during that era with Saturn and Pisces, there was the Woodstock Festival, right? In that era. And that was the only Woodstock that we had.
Yeah.
That was it.
Uh-huh.
But when 1994 came around, Saturn went back into Pisces, they brought Woodstock back. So it's this whole like celebration of coming together with Saturn and Pisces, but also shedding off the dirt and shedding off the gunk. Because Saturn and Neptune are going to conjunct in Aries. So the
It's
whole vibe with Neptune is going to change. I think that's the rise of the spiritual warrior, right? But anyway, with Pisces, I think, you know, do the work, channel your gifts, and not get caught in the muck
yeah.
because you will be rewarded with Saturn. So,
I mean, it's such a vibe that 1994 because it's like
yep.
you had the best. You had the hip hop, gangster rap,
Yep.
you had the grunge, and it's like
Yep.
it's what Saturn and Pisces can do, like
Yes.
these two worlds that you think are completely separate together.
Mm-hmm.
Straight times for music and in
Yes.
that time. It's like
Yep.
grunge and hip hop. It was like
Mm-hmm.
so cool.
It
I
was
love
amazing. I
yeah,
was only 4 years old, but still, like, I still look at that era and some of my favorite records and my favorite artists, like,
yeah,
that is that entire era. Movies too.
yeah,
Like, there's
yeah,
really great movies that came out at that time that really impacted me on a spiritual level. Um, The Crow. I don't know if you remember that
yeah. I
movie.
love the Crow. Brandon,
That,
what was it? Brandon Lee
Brandon
was
Lee is
yeah.
Bruce Lee's son, who actually died on the set.
I know. Same kind of same like his father, no? Or did Bruce Lee die the same way?
It's funny. I had this conversation last night with somebody about this movie, about him, because some person that I was talking to, they didn't know that this happened. But so there was an attempt. Well, I said attempt. Sorry. There was an accident.
Mm, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Uh, so when Bruce Lee was filming a movie, there was a bullet in the chamber that went off, and he didn't die from that.
Oh,
He ended up dying from some kind of heart failure. But
what?
that did happen to him on a set where there was a bullet in the chamber. on the movie set and it went off and I think it hit him, but it didn't kill him.
Yeah.
So his son Brandon, who was in The Crow, which that movie hits me so. I'm Pluto and Scorpio. There's just something about that movie that just hits me in the
That
Pluto.
makes sense.
Yeah, like deeply.
Yeah.
And he died on that set.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that movie, but it was the scene, because he basically like he gets murdered. Him and his girlfriend get murdered,
Yeah.
and by
And
this gang on Halloween. And this is the heart of Pluto and Scorpio too. The early mid 90s, and this is a very Pluto movie. So it's like him and his girlfriend get murdered in their apartment. He was a rock star kind of guy. He played guitar in a band and blah blah blah. And this gang murdered him and his girlfriend, and then he comes back to life to avenge,
Yep.
basically take these fools out. And the scene, he goes into a like this junky ass hotel to find one of the guys, and he breaks through the door, and one of the gangster dudes or him and his this girl are shooting heroin on the bed, and he puts his hand up, and the guy like pulls the trigger in the scene, right? And
Yeah.
the bullet goes through his hand, but like it closes out, like basically like the wound like heals itself like
Right.
instantaneously.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, I can't die because I'm already dead. Like very Pluto. But that was the scene where he died.
Oh, wow.
That
Okay.
was the scene. Yeah. So it's such a weird movie and the whole
And did they
conspiracy,
have to like kind of like CGI the rest of it or something?
something like that,
Yeah.
which I don't know
Or like
how.
a different actor or something. I mean, I don't know how
Yeah.
great CGI was then, but
Right.
yeah, I think they had to get like a different person or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a sad time, but yeah,
It's a
total,
great movie.
total Pluto and Scorpio. And
Yes.
I was a teenager already partying and
hmm
going wild, but
yeah.
it's,
Yeah. Yeah. That was wild. Saturn and Pisces is a magical thing.
yeah,
It
it's,
really is.
I love it. I like love the juxtaposition of that time because, like I said, you have the hip hop and
hmm
but it all merged and it was
It
just
did.
so much fun growing up at that
Yeah.
time.
hmm
Uh, it was just so raw and just like, house
Very
party.
raw.
It was just it's a lot of fun, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're fun here in Los
hmm
Angeles.
Yeah. Oh, so you were born and raised in LA.
No, I was born in Nicaragua, but
Wow.
yeah, but raised in Los Angeles. My parents brought me here when I was 3. Like I said,
Amazing. Yeah.
earlier, I was born, made from the war. And so my
Right.
parents, came and
hmm
all of that. So,
Amazing. That's
but
incredible.
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much an Angelino, since I was 3.
Right.
So, um, well, Alex, honestly, this has been truly, truly amazing. I'm so grateful and appreciative of your time.
Likewise.
You really went for it for the collective and the listeners. So I'm just really happy to have you on and, get
Thank
to
you.
get to know you on a deeper level now. I mean, we
Of
met
course. Yeah.
briefly, in
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
How do people get to know you and book sessions with you, or like if they want to do recordings with you too?
Yeah. Yeah.
You are a producer as well. People should know that. Amazing musician, amazing singer. I mean, I can't say enough about that. So,
Oh, thank you.
whatever I can do to help spread the word about you, let me know.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah. I mean, you can find me on Instagram, Alex Skyles Astrology. I do daily horoscopes on
Yep.
YouTube. I'm about to do some sun signs. People have been asking me like, "Hey, can you do sun signs?" I was like, "All right, sure." So on the YouTube, Alex Skyles Astrology as well. I post my horoscopes to Spotify, so if some people like to watch them on Spotify, when I'm watching the data, I'm like, "Oh wow, like more people are starting to watch on Spotify, which is cool." That's all there. You can book a reading with me. It's the link is on my Instagram. Maybe I can send you the link and you can share the link
Absolutely.
on here. Yeah, so I have a Pluto and Aquarius reading sale going on. It's going to be available until February 19th, when the sun goes to Pisces. So, and everything got booked out for February, and I'm leaving it up, but it'll book for March. So, but it's still available. So if you want to do that, I'll send you the link. But yeah, I'm
Yes.
mostly active
Send
on
me
Instagram.
everything. Send me
Yeah,
everything so I
I
can like
will. Yeah.
everything. And also your
Yeah.
studio if people wanted to like
Yeah,
use you to produce or
for sure. Yeah.
collaborate. I mean, I think it's amazing. And I just your in-depth astrology is great. I love how you can I see this is why I never became an astrologer because memorizing all this stuff, I'm just not good at it.
Yeah, like I do have a photographic memory. Like, I'm not good in school. I can't sit there and
Yeah.
listen to people like take notes and shit. Like, I just can't do it. But I'm Mercury 12th house. So if you're a Pisces Mercury or 12th house Mercury, the way you learn and the way you think, you just absorb, and you absorb everything visually. And, that's the best way for me to learn is to just actually just immerse myself into it. And, that's kind of where I thrive, but I've also like in the matrix of things, I have definitely been so challenged with the whole Virgo side of things. Hey, let me sit down and take notes and just
I
listen to this. But I can't do that shit. But I can sit there all day and absorb information and integrate myself in it with other people. And yeah, so and for me, music and astrology is both the same thing in that regard of uh, just absorbing and being able to put it to work and honing that every single day.
Well, it's beautiful. You've mastered it. And, there's always things to learn, is what I've
Every
learned.
day.
Every day, there's
Yeah.
something to learn. And, I'm just so grateful to you again for coming
Thank
on
you.
and
I
sharing your
appreciate it.
wisdom with the collective and
Yeah.
the listeners. And, hopefully we can do this again
Let's
or
do
in
more. Let's do
person.
more. I
Yeah.
think I think I think we went back and forth pretty nicely. That was really wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. I'd
Yeah.
love to do it again. If there's
Yeah.
any other big transit coming up, in the year, then
Yeah.
we'll chat again.
Absolutely.
Love to have
Please. Yeah.
you. All right, my darling. Thank you so much. And congratulations on the forthcoming baby. When do you know when she's due or
The 24th.
of this month?
The full moon in Virgo. It's coming.
The
So,
Pisces baby, huh?
yeah.
My mom's on the 23rd and my nephew's
Amazing.
22nd.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a
That's
lot
beautiful.
of people in my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's an amazing time. This when the sun goes to Pisces, it's gonna be great because we're gonna have the sun, Mercury, and Saturn conjunction right after this full moon. So we're going through so much Aquarius, Uranus, wild shit right now that the
I
vibes will,
know.
yeah, it's so crazy.
I think
But
this coming week is going to be wild, right? Like,
wild,
yeah,
wow, this new moon is just setting things, and the dominoes are starting to fall.
beautiful.
We'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Collective. I love it. I love it.
Yes.
Well, it's just so nice to connect with you. And once again, thank
You
you.
too.
And I will put all your information up and
Thank
just
you.
send it my way. And it will probably come out on Wednesday. So,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Great.
All right. You enjoy the rest of your day. And again, thank you so, so, so much.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
All right. Take care.
All right. Great.
How do I stop?